By the way, this is 75 PSI.
Oh, good.
Automatic
Just
nozzle.
in case you need more pressure.
Right, yeah, look at that. Low pressure 75, so
That's a beauty. I wanted to bug you about the one of the other current, well, it's always current.
Yeah. That's
Short-staffed engine, meaning 3 or less, arriving at a residential structure fire with not a lot of help coming, and you have somebody in the window or somebody outside pointing to a window, and you got an obvious working fire. 3 people there. What's as a fireman, as an officer, and as a pump operator, your priorities from A to Z. Where do you start? You're on the back step. What's your job?
Well, again, let's take a look at this and break it down. Okay, you've got 3 people: the officer position, the driver, and then you're the firefighter. Okay, again, your scenario. Let's make it a 2-story frame structure. You want fire on the first floor? You want heavy fire? You want fire short? Or whatever the case may be. Excuse me. All right. You're the engine. You're the first engine at a working fire with people involved. Again, go back to Andy Fredericks, what he would say: take away the problem, things get better. But when we don't do that, when we don't make that effort to take away the problem, it's only going to get bigger and it's going to get worse. So if somebody is in there and they're trapped, they're not out a window, okay, and no water is being applied, number one, I don't care how good your protective gear is, you're going to have a rough time trying to find them. And the chances of that place without any water being applied, and we're saying it's a good body of fire, flash over. What do you think is going to happen to you when the place flashes over and you have, because we've said it before also, you take a line with you, that's also your lifeline. You extinguish the fire as you go. If the fire overpowers your hose line, you got a lifeline to fall back on. If you're in protective gear and you've got those conditions, what about the victim in there? Again, here comes that other thing. Survivable space. Yes.
Absolutely.
There you go. Okay, if you're concerned about survivable space, let's make greater survivable space by bringing down the volume of fire. So that's where the initial attack line comes in. Okay? There's a house on fire. We have a report of somebody in there, and let's just say, like for example, our site got a thing recently from somebody wanting to know about VES for engines. Okay.
Right.
Notice I said VES, not VEIS.
Oh, you can remember that?
I think so.
Okay.
I'm an old guy, so again, that VES is easier to remember.
Yeah, it's one less letter.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm a guy who doesn't believe in reinventing the wheel just to put your name on it. Okay, if somebody else came up with it and it works, run with it.
All right, let's get back to the brass tacks here. All right.
Okay, so when you perform VES, and you don't have somebody at the window, okay. Number one, VES is vent, enter, search. In other words, you don't know where you're going in at, really, do you? And you don't know if that person, before you got there, was still semi-conscious, crawling around from room to room, maybe into the bathroom, maybe into a closet, trying to get away from this situation. Right. Okay? So to step off the engine, 3 people, and climb into this window, what could you do with that hose line in that same amount of time or less? If your engine's set up to be an attack engine, you can get water in the fire. Okay? All right?
And would you need all 3 people to get the water?
Well, no, that's just the thing.
Right.
Okay, so we're not taking away the idea of VES. We're taking away the thing that's your only priority.
Right. It's not an all or nothing game.
No, it's not.
You got, as Jerry Knapp puts in his book House Fires, he addresses this. An inside and an outside team for VES is way more, percentage-wise, way more likely to be successful. You got somebody on the inside pushing fire attack. They're gonna hit means of egress. They're gonna hit those hallways, common areas as they're advancing on the fire. And if you have an outside team, whether that's the pump operator or the officer, now you got both ends covered, right?
Well, here's the thing. Remember we said 3 people on an engine.
Mm-hmm.
So that means you're going to be running around doing extra duty, okay? For example, let's say that here comes the engine, okay? Obvious working fire, and people are screaming, there's somebody up there. All right, so this is a quick call out of the street. And again, we can play the scenario at the training center and so forth, but really, especially at nighttime, okay? When you really got that thing in you, like, oh God, this is the real thing, there is somebody in there, we got a good working fire, and there's only 3 of us, okay? Get the line laid out and get water in the fire, okay? This isn't a thing, by the way, for those 360 people, is it? Because you don't have time. If you've got the real thing in front of you, again, firefighting is circumstantial. What are the conditions you have? What are your resources that you have? My thing is, and most others, you get that line out and start getting water in the fire, okay? Just get that nozzle man. He should be stepping out of the cab with his turnout gear on. Get that line out. That's where the driver can help lay that line out. And if you got the officer or the acting officer in charge to get a ladder up, what does the building give you to work with? Does it have a front porch roof? Does it have a back porch or an airing porch and so forth? What is there that building's going to give you to help you get in there and perform that VES? But see, this is a timing issue. That line laid out, again, we've said before, 90 seconds or less from air brakes to water at the nozzle. So make sure your hose beds aren't complex. Don't make the hose beds that you have to drag them half a block away to drag them back to get all the kinks out of it and so forth. You've only got 2 guys in this case. That firefighter on the nozzle should have the working length with him, okay? And that's the thing. If that's the door right there and the fire's coming out, you got your protective gear on, so I better get back here. You start working that line into that fire and just dump all you got into it. So again, here comes that thing about survivable space again. Bring that volume of fire down, do what you can to reduce the heat that's being produced or kill the fire, okay? And again, earlier in one of our broadcasts, we talked about the type of engine that you're speccing now. Again, go back to the specs that make it a fire engine, not a you-all, do-all kind of thing, which means put a 750 or an 800 gallon water tank on it if you've only got 3 people on it, okay? Now don't run with that and buy a 2,500 gallon tank or engine or whatever, because we've seen that happen too, where people have gone overboard the other way, so forth. But it's a triple combination. Make sure you got good water. You can start through that hose line, and one person can handle it and start, putting a knock in the fire. Okay, the officer or whoever can now make that VES, if possible, with a much better approach. Knowing, and I gotta tell you, we was at a fire years ago. I was a nozzle man. Okay, we had a bar on the first floor, apartments above. Okay, and the lieutenant and one firefighter, they were going above the fire. I had the nozzle, fire's rolling out the door, and I'm getting my line up into the door, pump operators going around, shagging line, all this other stuff. And again, I worked 17 years on a single engine. That was, that was the way it was, until the rest of the assignment gets there. One of the things that Mike told me was that I knew you were in there because as I'm crawling around the apartment, the water's hitting the underside, or the ceiling of the fire area. He says, I knew that I was able to go further with my search.
And
those are little benchmarks.
Among all the circumstances that are around firefighting, one of the more invisible ones is the experience of the crew. That's part of your circumstantial
That's huge
thing. So if you've got that 2-year guy on the nozzle, guess what? Don't expect him to make more than just the threshold with that nozzle, because he probably shouldn't, right? Because he just doesn't have the experience to understand how much fire he's been extinguished. He's not thinking about the layout of the house. He's not considering where the locations of stairs are, where he should be working to. And having the more experienced person trying to make that rescue makes sense. But like you said, you're limited by the firefighting. If the firefighting's not happening, you're more likely to bail or leave that almost always overweight naked person at the window. I mean, what do you got?
Really?
Trying to pick somebody up, or somebody that's on the other side of a outward swinging door or inward swinging door.
Oh yeah.
These are the scenarios that happen,
Right.
and until you're feeling that heat bang on you, and you're trying to get somebody up and over an obstacle or out a window or around a closed door,
And this
it
is
just
what-
doesn't happen like it does on the fire training academy grounds,
No,
right?
and again, it goes back to what we've always try to say is that firefighting is circumstantial.
Sure.
So, if that's the case, then you've got to stay with the principles. The principles and the basics are what are going to get you through in a situation like that. Hopefully, you'll be able to adapt in that environment. Okay, understanding what I got to do next and what we're going to do here, and what and you're operating by yourself. Remember, in a lot of cases, these become your eyes when you're in zero visibility and that heat's coming down on you. It's like, oh my God, what am I feeling here and so forth. Things like that. And again, listening for those sounds. Or if you're crawling on the floor above where the fire attack is going, like I mentioned, I remember Mike telling me that. He says, yeah, I knew you had the line in there and so forth, and because I could feel it hitting the floor or the ceiling below. And that's huge. Because now what does that tell that guy or those guys making a search?
I can go a little bit further.
Absolutely. There you go.
Because he's trusting you that you're buying him time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so that hose line has got to be something that's going to give us the volume for that knockdown power, or at least you can bring it fire down, control it as best we can. So, yeah.
So when this scenario happens and you have a department that's supply side orientated, where they've got 1,800 feet of large diameter hose, they've got a 1,000-gallon tank or more, and they're more worried about, well, I got to make sure I have a water supply, got to make sure we get, the cones out, or whatever the ancillary stuff is that the unexperienced departments do. How does that relate to this scenario? Like you've got a pump operator who's maybe he's in full turnout gear trying to get a supply going because these other two guys are working on this house fire.
Well, what have we done? Have we done a forward lay coming into this job, or are we going on the attack mode, and the hydrant is 500 feet back or whatever?
Right.
Do you have the rest of the assignment coming in? What is the assignment that's coming in? When are they going to get there? How quickly do you expect them to get there? There's just a lot of things at stake. This is why I say this is just one of the things, or one of the many things that make firefighting circumstantial.
Where do you think that pump operator should be? Where do you think his mindset should be in this kind of scenario?
Oh God. Again, depending on the kind of building you got, he gets water set at the attack line. What's the officer doing? Does the officer need a butt to the ladder, or can he get it up there? He can get his thing going. Okay, fine. We don't want to lose water. So again, this is that whole thing that we said in previous videos. I think one before. When you turn the corner, you don't put pedal to the metal when you see the jackpot waiting for you. You slow down, and
that's hard to do for young people.
Exactly, but it's only taken a couple of seconds.
Yeah.
And now you're being able to put together a better size up as you're responding in here and coming in. You get an idea. Where's my hydrant? Okay. Oh God, we're going to be pulling a line operating off the tank right now. There's my hydrant back there. So it helps everybody be more aware of what the conditions are that you have for this fire. So it's just
Pump operators.
He can get a pipe pull if he has to vent windows. That can happen too.
So gloves and helmet and get to work, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And radio.
Oh, sure, gotta have that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's there's no black and white answer here. It's not cut and dry. It's just too circumstantial to say VES for the first engine is a yes or a no. It's what do you have to work with? Do you got experienced people? Do you have an easy hose bed? Is it a ranch or it's a two-story house? Do you see the person in the window, or is it somebody just telling you, yeah, that's the bedroom and that's where she sleeps or he sleeps?
Yeah.
What are you going with? It's judgment calls.
Right, exactly. Any apartment that wants to live in a black and white world, I think they're going to find themselves
Pretty miserable.
Yeah, exactly. you got, and again, in this time, 2020, this year, boy, it's screwed up because we don't have the classes or the conferences taking place. A couple of things that we've seen recently that have come out online by some people, it's like, oh my God, where's this person coming from? some of the questions that are out there and some of the people that are making statements about hose loads and fire attack philosophy and stuff like that. So, again, you know.
Stick with the principles.
Yeah, exactly. Stick with the principles, and you know what? Your fire department is not like mine. It's just that simple, okay? Your fire department is not like mine. It's different, okay? And so for somebody to say, I'm gonna make a blanket statement that I like this style of hose, you know, for everybody. No. And that's another thing. You know, we need people, number one, with experience, number two, knowledge, number three, some type of education beyond that. In other words, educating themselves about, you know, their community, their conditions and so forth. And you know what? Sometimes you just gotta be able to say no, okay? And that's the hard thing about being a boss today. You know, when I went down and I took that job down in South Carolina, you know, we were talking about some things. And same thing, you know, when I was back home, when I was doing all that engine class work, somebody's asking, you know, well, when do we do this? And when does it begin? I says, right now. And you need to be like a 12-year-old kid, you know, with a brand new toy. You play with it until somebody tells you to stop or you go blind, whichever one comes first.
Right.
So, you know, that's it. You gotta be able to establish policy and so forth. So that thing we talked about a second ago about, you know, one way of doing business, no, you have to be flexible, you know? And so being able to lay into a fire or go into attack mode, laying out 1, 2, 3, or 4 or more attack lines if your water supply is able to. If you only have 3 people in an engine, you gotta understand that there's more than one job that you can do here or have to do, and all these other things, you know? And it all runs back to, wait a minute, this is an engine. Without that engine getting water in a fire, the situation's gonna get worse.
Consequences are way worse.
Exactly. So all this stuff, you see, and I could probably throw 1,000 more things if I had the time, you know? But,
Yeah.
anyways.
Gray area.
Yeah, exactly, you know, but you know what? Put the fire out, and once again, what was that?
Everything gets
Andy?
better. That's it. Okay. Well, good chatting.
Yeah, glad we got something out. It's been a while.
Yeah. Well, check us out on the Facebook and the website, and hopefully we'll start seeing some things pop for us as far as classes.
Next week, we're going to Oswego, Illinois. One of our guys, Jeff Warren, we're gonna be back there with them. Mike Vestling, Chief V, as he is known. We're going back there with those guys, and we're gonna be doing work with the 2-inch line.
Good.
You know, they wanna look at it, and there's a couple other things that they wanna discuss while we're out there. So, I'm sure we'll be having a great time with those guys. Great department, you know, last time we were there, you know, we had a lot of stuff that we accomplished and so forth. So, good thing.
Right on.
Good thing, yep.
All right, well, we'll see you out there.
Yep.
Take care.